The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It's another edition of The Big Issue. And as usual, I'm your regular host. George Agba is my name. And with me here in the studio, our in-house analyst. We have Silas Ezegu. And a very special guest here, Chief Robert Okpara.
Good to be here, sir.
Well, the big issue of the day is Governor's last-minute appointment and the Gale of sack in Osun State. Well, the recent trend in the country is that outgoing state governors are engaged in last-minute appointments, which has raised concern by some Nigerians who think they are leaving their would-be successors with huge cost in governance. This is against the backdrop of the gale of defection in Osun State, where the newly sworn-in governor, Ademola Adeleke, is wielding the big stick. The governor fired 12 workers hired by 12,000 workers hired by former Governor Oyetola. Although sources say that it's only 2,000 appointments that was made by the former governor. But the incumbent governor now, Senator Adeleke, is saying that his predecessor is actually hatching a diabolical plan to create problems for his administration. And of course, let's just hear it in the mouth of Adeleke. Adeleke said that since you elected me as your governor on the 16th of July 2022, the former governor, Alhaji Isiaka Oyetola, maliciously started putting roadblocks to make things difficult and almost impossible for the new administration to serve you. Mass employment were carried out without budgetary provisions for salary payment for the new employees, even when the state was struggling to pay salaries and deliver other services. Various hurried and criminally backdated contracts were awarded, and again without budgetary provisions. Appointment of several obas were hurriedly done without following due process, just to mention a few. While also sacked were traditional rulers appointed by former Governor Oyetola. And it is a source of great concern for some persons who feel that these appointments are leaving the new administration with huge burden in terms of the cost of governance, especially coming at a time when there had been calls for the reduction of cost of governance. Chief, most people who do these appointments, we have Governor Nyesom Wike in Rivers State, who at the last count, I think he was said to have appointed workers in his state up to the tune of 200,000. 39,000. And then in Cross River State, the governor has done that kind of appointment. And some other states, and they call it community empowerment. It's youth empowerment. But don't you think that at the end of the day, in a country where there is also the issue of unemployment, it wouldn't be too bad on the part of those governors making this appointment?
Wow. Anyway, thanks for having me on today's show. If I may, can I look at what's happened in Osun State? Then we can also look at it from different angles. See, the bottom line is that our politicians, those that actually succeed getting into different government houses across Nigeria. a lot of them are mentally jobless, basically. They're also psychologically jobless, because how else can you describe this youthful exuberance from the governor? That's the only way I can look at it. Yes, even two bulls in a china shop, one of the bulls must be sane. You can't have two bulls in a china shop. That one will be a cracker. And that's exactly what played out. Now, you are coming in. Is it not possible, whatever booby traps that have been laid on your way, you have brought in a lot of functionaries with you, or you don't have the human capacity to set up structures that can investigate and find out what has happened? You have the powers now, you have the instrument of the state to look at it from an objective angle. In one fell swoop, you remove 12,000 persons from your either state civil service or whatever you call it. Is that not sheer holistic madness? That's the way I look at it. So at the end of the day, what if there is, a sane number of, say, 1,000 out of that 12,000, and you've sacked them? Then how do you get a reprieve? Or how will these people you just sacked get a reprieve? Now, what I'm saying, sir, is that even as a governor, yes, I'm not going to ask a governor that is on the exit door to go, into a madhouse mentality, to go and start appointing people. It's actually criminal for you to do that, because you don't have the budget, you don't have the wherewithal. The instrument of power has slipped through your fingers and your toenails and all that stuff. So is it not crisis on 20 legs that you're building for your successor? But hey, they didn't vote in the man that left. They voted you, and they voted you because you have danced yourself into the government house. And then you've also shown people of Osun that you have the capacity to manage their resources, human and material capacity. So why don't you just go ahead and do the needful and provide the governance structures and be able to change lives in Osun State? That's why you are elected. All this nonsense on the trail right now in Osun State is a distraction.
Thank you very much, Chief. Silas, you've heard what Chief said. But most of the governors making this appointment said the move is to help check unemployment and fill the gap within the civil service. And of course, one would actually look at the situation and say, well, you don't blame them. Although those are saying more, there are those who say it is a waste of resources. And it is actually against the call for the court of the cost of governance. And but you see, how do we address unemployment if government decides to employ and they say it is still a waste? That is where the confusion lies, because there are those for it now saying that you don't reverse what would have actually helped to change the lives of people.
George, thank you for that question. It's a double-edged sword, kind of. On one hand, you are looking at the cost of governance and the clamor for slice, in the governance, overhead cost of governance. Then on that hand, looking at unemployment. Well, what to ask yourself, the people who have been employed, are they employed objectively? Are they employed in productive sectors? Okay. What is the motive? How do I look at What's the government motive for employing such people? In the case of Rivers, where you have 200,000 visors on polling unit, this is a political appointment to do with the election coming.
Absolutely.
So those people really know that their tenure will end with the governor's tenure. Once Wike's job is done in Rivers State, they two are going, So, but they'll be happy to collect the 50,000, 30,000 the government will give them between now and then. And what it means that if the government wants to use them as political tools or as polling agents or vote canvassers and co, you don't need to give them money again that time. You already pay them ahead of time to do that kind of job. So you don't know the brief they have. I have not seen the letter of appointment of those 200,000 people, but 39,000 others who are also engaged, in project watching. So that's by the way. When it comes to the one of Osun State, some of the appointments looks very fishy. Some of them look fishy. Otherwise, how will the government be appointing 30 palm secs 2-3 days to the end of the tenure? Palm secs are like the ministers of a governor. Can you imagine now Buhari leaving the scene and appointing ministers? Well, I will not say ministers. Commissioners are the ministers. The palm secs are the ones that are actually administering the different ministries. The commissioners come and go. The palm secs are career civil servants. Okay, so they're the one that carry out the government policies and so on. So at the end of the day, you appoint somebody that should work for you and carry out the plans you have for the state. So if a governor is going and inviting people of that caliber, I think was asking for trouble. And before then, the governor had even told them, look, if I take this appointment, I'm going to reverse it. So those ones knew already that this appointment will not hold that because the incoming governor had already said
They will reverse it.
They will reverse that one. If there are 12,000 workers, that one is also up for debate because the outgoing government is claiming, some of the sources are claiming that they are not up to 12,000 that are appointed within that time. This people are saying that 12,000. So we don't really know the figures. But, like I said, intention. Was there an intendment to hire these people in the first place before the election? Or is it something that happened as an afterthought? Because everything government is budgeting. Were they hired based on the budget of 2022? I'm sure that governor would have felt that he was going to have a second term, especially since he was sitting governor in the state controlled by where they control about 90% of the lawmakers. Okay, where also the leader of the APC in the country, it is uncle or thereabout. So with all this around him, I'm sure he must have felt that this election was going to win it. So it's possible that I did not make provision, as the governor said, for employing this number of people within this time. So, but I agree with the chief that possibly what we have done is that instead of going gung-ho the way it has gone, you have set up a panel to review all the appointments that happen within the time and those the ones that are objective and that those who are not objective. Then, because there's no point sack the 12,000 of them if there are 12,000 and find out that maybe 1,000 we are genuinely employed. Do you understand? In that case, you go back to and then the other one about chiefs and co. I'm sure that all the people, to take such a bold decision, you are going to get flack. All those chiefs here to now, possibly there was some reason why they were appointed, possibly to balance some things up, and the governor may not, the new government may not have taken time to. So I agree with the chief Robert that we should have set up a panel inquiry, give them 1 month or so to study all those things and find out the ones that needed to go, and the ones that needed to stay. But the governors that have the pension for starting, from the report, some governors are just starting some projects afresh now, and they have no hope of completing it before the leave office. That is rascality, as some people have said. So the issues of government should be taken seriously, and unfortunately, the unfortunate to have is that you don't have a House of Representatives or House of Assembly that are playing the oversight function very well. Otherwise, if things are not working according to the budgeting, which is the law.
Mm.
They can move against the governor for breaking the law. But now they're just most of them are rubber stamp lawmakers. So on one hand, I think the governors who are leaving office are making whole scale appointments may not have got it right. But the conquer attitude of this man can only bring him trouble. He should have been more speculative about it, set up a commission of inquiry, look through it, so that by the time you have given them an opportunity to defend themselves, if they fail, they will know that you're not doing it out of spite against the former government, but because genuinely. I know somebody that did it in the South at that time. I told them, look, this man just did it, and they understood with him. So I'd love to stop here, but I think governors should be more careful the way they handle the issues of state when they're leaving office.
Okay, let's just quickly take a break, hoping that our viewers will actually send in their contribution to the conversation on the big issue by their way of comment. Don't go offline. We'll be back in a moment.
The big issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Welcome back. We're still on the big issue in Leadership Podcast. And of course, the big issue of the day is last-minute appointments made by state governors and the Gale of sacks in Osun State. Chief, you heard what Silas has said. He's neither here nor there. He's blaming these governors for making this kind of appointments, and at the same time, blaming Osun State governor for not actually following due process in dismissing most of the people appointed by his predecessor. But before we continue, let's begin to see what our viewers are saying there. We have Agbane Obiabo Emmanuel. Emmanuel say the last minute appointment by the outgoing governor is not for the state's interest. You can imagine what Emmanuel thinks. His opinion is that what Oyetola did was not for the interest of the state. That means there were some political undertone in those appointments. But at the same time, I fear for Governor Adeleke, because you can imagine what might happen to him if the State Assembly decides to move against him. As Silas said, that the Parliament, that is, the State Assemblies, are not doing their oversight functions very well. If not, they would have actually moved against this appointment. In Osun, the case is quite different, because the governor is actually standing on the precipice, because the State Assembly members are APC members. I think it's only two or three PDP lawmakers. So in the event where they decide to move for his impeachment, then at the end, we'll now begin to have another political crisis in Osun.
See, basically, Nigerian, politics has become very, very dramatic, and it will only take a bunch of madmen and madwomen Osun State House of Assembly to go for an impeachment of a governor that has not even lasted for 48 hours. That's number one. Because number two, anybody that tries it in this dispensation is looking for serious, dramatic war, because it won't happen. Now, what I'm saying is that the governor that just left planted this time bomb. That's number one. He had no business whatsoever, planting these time bombs. And at the end of the day, even the statement he made on his way out, to the point of saying and indicating that he will come back as a governor, and he has planned. That means he didn't quite actually know or understood himself to realize that, hey, the game is over. And so you can't be in and out at the same time. You lost an election, and that is the bottom line. And so, for me personally, this ought to be a greater lesson, for our skewed democratic dispensation in Nigeria. A lot of these governors, I'm a bit angst. I'm a bit disappointed that Adeleke will spend a lifetime, trying to be governor, and within 24 hours of becoming a governor, he's shooting himself in the leg, and he didn't, think. And these things happen because zealous, or rather scrupulous men and women that surround them, and at the end of the day, they win the election. They just want to push these governors, through the ghetto or through the gallows, if you will. Because if this young man that danced himself to the, governor's lodge, in Osun State, actually has some crop of good advisors that he actually respects. I know a few of them that I know that they have, pure sanity in their heads. And if he had allowed, one or two of them that I know very well, and say, okay, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I'm sure somebody must have pulled his part and say, okay, don't do this, because that is too early to start a fight you can't finish. So at the end of the day, this is what he has just started a fight that he doesn't know how or where it will end. So I suggest, I just suggest that he goes back to the drawing board, assuming he has a drawing board, assuming he has a governance structure, assuming he has a governance plan, apart from dancing. If he has an articulate plan that he wants to, use to elevate the people of Osun through healthcare, for instance, through management of hospitals and maternities and all that stuff, and employment and youth and women. If that is the case, if that's the bouquet he has, I doubt if he will have enough time to go, sacking monarchs. If you go and touch monarchs, it's just like those days when we were young. You light up a knockout, you put it in your pocket, and you just keep walking on the streets and all that, and the thing will be exploding, boom, 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 boom. That's exactly what he did, and that is very, very infantile. I'm sorry to say, very, very infantile and very, very mature.
Well, Silas, we are looking at a situation where the lawmakers, some might move against Governor Adeleke's infantile decision, according to Chief Roberts, who said what he did was infantile. Most people have actually been wondering how a dancing senator will not really act when it comes to governing a whole state. But also some say that dance is not a sign of irresponsibility. That at the end of the day, he would dance the state into strides of achievement. But do we see any hope that this particular governor will do anything different in a state that has tagged backward economic
more steadily, in a calculated form to make such decisions. So that by the time he has finished doing it, even the people he's going to remove will understand that we are giving fair hearing and fair consideration.
Well, thank you very much, Silas. Well, there's a congruence of opinion in the big issue that the decision taken by the new governor of Osun State, Ademola Adeleke, was wrong in a way. As it appears due process was not followed in the sack of those appointed by his predecessor. Inasmuch as we are not actually given to last-minute appointments that appears to be so frivolous, and most people considering them to be political as a way of empowering the people ahead of the election, Governor Adeleke would have actually tread with caution in his sack. And in the process, he has created for himself the very first enemies in the state, the 12-person sack. It's an unfolding event, and of course, let's just see what the State Assembly will be doing in the coming days. whether there might be moves to impeach him, because the state legislature is made up of lawmakers. Majority of the lawmakers are members of the opposition APC. Thank you for keeping tab with us, and of course, I thank our in-house analysts and of course our very special guest, Chief Robert Opara, for addressing the big issue. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of this program. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.